Hi, everybody, and welcome to Schools in Focus, an 1105 media podcast. I'm your host, Matt Jones, Senior Editor for Spaces for Learning, and our guest today is Tim Nyblom, the Director of End User Business Development and Higher Education for HID Global. Today, we'll be talking about mobile ID card issuance on higher education campuses and the process of transition from physical to electronic student IDs. We'll cover the benefits of mobile IDs for both students and administrators, how mobile access credentials enhance campus security and advance sustainability goals, common barriers and obstacles toward adoption, and the journey that institutions take as they implement the change. This episode is sponsored by HID Global. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Schools in Focus. I'm your host, Matt Jones, and our guest today is Tim Nyblom, the Director of End User Business Development of Higher Education at HID Global. Tim, thanks a lot for being here today.
Yes, thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the platform.
Oh yeah, of course, we're happy to have you. First of all, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your professional background?
Yeah, sure. So I have been in the physical access control industry, tied to the higher education vertical for roughly 20 years now. Been focused around end user sales, business development, account management, you name it, I've kind of done it, and really have been helping college universities modernize their identity access and security ecosystems, um, kind of being that trusted advisor to help answer questions and provide as much information as we can.
Good. And then I think jumping into our topic today, at the broadest level, what benefits do mobile access and mobile ID card issuance offer to colleges and universities?
So some of the benefits of mobile access to college and universities right out of the gate is stronger security, better convenience, and an overall enhanced student experience and really campus experience. Students today are obviously very passionate about their devices. They carry these things everywhere they go. They're always on them. So the question becomes, we're using our phone for everything else. Why can't we use our student ID in the phone?
And then what are some of the benefits of mobile IDs from the administrator side?
Yeah, out of the gate, not having unhappy students, right? Think about a student when they're trying to get a plastic ID card, maybe come into campus for orientation, having them wait in long lines, use an ID card, use a piece of plastic where they're using their phone for everything else. So it, eliminates some of that tension or stress or overwork that they may see from the card office side. Things run more efficient. There's a higher level of security now, right? The device is using biometrics to even authenticate. The security risk potentially decreases. A student is much more inclined to give their card right to their girlfriend, boyfriend, friend than their phone. So there's all types of benefits that administrators can see once they make the move to mobile.
Okay. And then can you talk a little more about how mobile access credentials enhance campus security?
Yes. When you think about campus security, most universities and colleges have been using legacy means of identification, whether that's a magstripe card, a proximity card, something that's been compromised in the security world for the last, you know, 5, 10 years. So when you go to mobile credentials, they're using the latest forms of credential technology encryption. And then you have the added layers of, most phones these days are using some type of biometric to authenticate to the device, right? And if you lose your phone, that is probably going to be identified right away. And there's going to be some type of, call or, right, immediate heartache that the phone is lost. Whereas a card, if that card is lost on campus, it could be a day, it could be a couple days, it could be weeks before that card is reported lost. Someone could pick that up. Typically speaking, you're not going to give, a student's not going to give their phone to their significant other, a friend, those type of things to use it, where they have no problem giving a card.
Right. And then, how do mobile access credentials advance the university's sustainability goals?
Yeah, this is a good question, and this keeps coming up more and more these days when you think about sustainability. So I think it's fair to say that every university probably has some type of sustainability initiatives. They have sustainability councils, or they're focused on ESG stuff. So when you think about it, an ID card is a plastic card. So there's a stat out there, according to one of the industry publications, Campus Security Today. A standard plastic ID card weighs about 5 grams and has an estimated carbon footprint of 21 grams of carbon dioxide. And their estimate, hundreds of millions of cards are sold annually, right, resulting in plastic waste of 2,700 tons and then overall carbon footprint of 11,400 tons. Right, so that's just giving an example. And if you have sustainability goals, could reducing your plastic usage and waste help you meet those sustainability goals? It's not going to be the end all be all, but it is another option that you can have to look at those eco-friendly practices.
That does make sense. I went to a larger university. The student population was 50,000 plus. And I think if every one of those students has an ID card, and if every one of those throughout like their 4 or 5 year tenure maybe has to replace it at least once, that's a lot of plastic that adds up.
Yeah, it is. We had one CFO for a university last year that deployed mobile, and that was the final push to get them over the hump to make the decision, was focusing on the sustainability angle using an ROI, that just benefited everything else that they were already in the process of doing. They focused on that sustainability angle to push it over the top for approval.
Okay. And then picking up on that, what are some of the traditional barriers toward colleges and universities adopting these systems? And then how can they overcome these barriers?
Yeah, this is one of the biggest challenges we probably see, with these college and universities. So the way I like to describe it is many of these campuses are like mini cities, and they've grown up this way. They are very siloed. They have a lot of legacy infrastructure on campus, hardware that's been on the walls for, maybe 10, 15, 20 plus years. They're making decisions in a vacuum. I kind of mentioned that earlier, where they're focused on their particular business unit, their particular area of campus. They have gone to their own conferences over the years, right? Have bought in their own hardware solutions, bought in there's some software solutions, right? Not thinking of the campus in general and how it may affect the credential lifecycle. So this is a massive challenge for universities that want to go mobile credential, because in most cases the infrastructure either has to be replaced outright or upgraded. So one of the biggest areas is the focus on is bringing all the different stakeholders together around campus and having the conversation really about how does it affect their business? How does it affect their department? Do they understand the terminology? Do they understand how this will potentially benefit them? Understanding what is actually around campus from a hardware and software perspective. We like to refer this as a use case assessment, right? Going around campus and identifying what's actually on your walls, what hardware you're using, those type of things, to kind of set a baseline that says, okay, we now have an understanding of what we're using on our campus and how we're using it today and where we want to go. So let's start taking those steps to move the process forward.
Can you chart the journey that higher education institutions take as they transition from physical to mobile ID credentials? How do you get user buy-in? And then what are some of the moving parts at play? I know that's kind of a broad question, but can we just start with kind of walking through the journey that colleges and universities take as they're kind of transitioning from physical to mobile?
Yeah, and it's one of the things that I just mentioned in the previous answer is you really need to understand what is on the campus. Again, whether your campus is a small, 5,000 student population, medium to, a large campus where you may have 30,000 plus students. You have to identify what you have on your campus to see where you are today, to see where you want to be with mobile credentials. We have to be able to identify the hardware. And then it's not just about physical access control either. It's then identifying all the other use cases on campus. So where is your card being used today, or multiple cards being used today? You got to identify the physical access control. Do you have housing? It may be the rec center. It may be the library, right? The bookstore. It may be copy and print. It may be, off-campus merchant. All these different use cases. Where is the card being used today? Let let's make sure we understand the lay of the land, so to speak. And it goes back to what I said earlier, where okay, we've identified now what's on campus. We need to bring people together to have the conversation. We have to educate. We have to get people speaking the same language. We have to get people on the same page. We have to get buy-in to be able to manage up to your leadership. Again, depending on the size of your campus and what may be needed. We got to have those conversations to not only educate everybody involved from the department level, but then educate leadership on the why.
Okay. And then I had a question kind of about it. It's sort of on the campus security side, and I'm not sure if this is a little bit too like nitpicky, but I think when you come down to like mobile access credentials, I think lately it's been a lot more common to get like electronic tickets and stuff like that. I know that recently, the last time we bought tickets off of Ticketmaster to go to a concert, it sent it in an email, and in the email it said something like present this email at the event, and it said do not take a screenshot, do not take a picture, those won't be valid, like you need this one single email, this is what's going to like get you into the event. And I was wondering if the mobile IDs were kind of coded the same way, if you needed like the actual screen within the app, or if screenshots could be sent and passed around, and if that would work the same way.
Yeah, no, and there's some things being done on the security side to prevent that. What a lot of universities, or what you've seen in the industry, or universities that have said they've launched mobile credentials, is where they're putting it in the wallet. The identity is verified, so that's the person whose credential it should be. So they're using single sign-on, two-factor authentication, right? They're logged into the university's systems, and they are approved to receive that credential, and then putting that credential into the wallet. So it's not a screenshot, it's not, not an email.
Okay.
It's the credential in the phone has the necessary keys and encryption to tap on said reader for authentication.
Okay. No, that's a good clarification. And then, why does the topic of mobile ID card issuance matter to this industry now, rather than 10 years ago or 10 years in the future?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And one of the things I like to highlight is there's a new generation of students coming. So it's called Generation Alpha. And these are the kids that will be entering universities really in the next 6, 8, 10 years, where they were born digital. This is all they've ever known. And it's one of those things when we go back to the question or the answers or the conversation I mentioned earlier, where there's a lot of legacy infrastructure, right? There's a lot of things that have been done one way for a very long time. Why are we forcing this next generation to live in our world? We should be trying to build their world. This is all they know, right? They're digital natives. They use their phone for everything. They're used to frictionless experiences, right? They're used to things working invisibly. They're used to not working with frustrating like type systems, a lot of self provisioning aspects, right? This is the world that they know. So why can't we build it for them? Why aren't we can start taking steps now? And you know, mobile is a big conversation. and it's not going to happen overnight. And whether you're a school that's going to wants to go this route in a year, 2 years, 5 years from now, there's things that we can do. There's conversations that we can have to start moving that direction forward and help build this future for the generation that's coming, called Generation Alpha.
That is true. My sister's daughter is, I think, when she was probably 16, 18 months old, something like that, like a little less than a year and a half, she was trying to scroll through physical books.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think she was kind of poking and just sort of sliding her finger along the page, trying to get the page to turn.
Yeah.
Because,
I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
just
they're used
all of the
to.
little things that you don't even think about that people who were born with this technology kind of just intuit.
Right. We take things for granted. We've seen both sides. This generation knows nothing else. Like they expect stuff to work, right? They expect a strong user experience. They expect convenience. So when it's clunky, they know it, they feel it, right? And your department's going to feel it, your administration's going to feel it, the campus is going to feel it. And
And
this is who's coming to campuses soon.
yeah, no, I think it's definitely a wave that's here to stay. I think maybe one last question is that for any university or colleges that are listening to this podcast right now who are still kind of relying on physical IDs, what would be, and I think maybe taking into account some realistic factors like either budget or limited staff or stuff like that, how could somebody listening to this podcast kind of getting inspired to transition from physical to electronic ID? What are some very first steps? Kind of what are a few actionable items that they could take either today or this week to kind of tip that very first domino over and get the ball rolling?
Yeah, the first item is start the conversation. What we've seen that's been very successful with any university that has gone in a mobile direction is someone has to champion the project. So you'll hear words like champion or cheerleader, or someone needs to have the passion and the drive to help push the narrative and help push the project forward. And that's where we've seen many universities be very successful. So it's beginning the conversation. It could be someone in the card office. It could be somebody in the physical security. It could be somebody in auxiliary. But start that conversation with them and say, ask them the question: are you getting inquiries from your students about mobile credentials? Uh, what would that look for your department? What are you guys doing over here? What type of hardware do you have? What type of software? Some of the other areas that we've seen success is student government associations are starting to help drive this change as well. So if you have a student government association on campus, maybe approach them, ask them, are they thinking about mobile credentials? Do they understand it? Would they be open to have a conversation? That seems to be a very powerful angle as well.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, the student grassroots movement angle, that could be really good.
Yeah, I think we're going to start seeing that more and more as more and more universities, roll this out. It's almost like a snowball effect going down a hill. It just keeps picking up and getting bigger and bigger, bigger and bigger steam. And the one things that I like to say as I kind of wrap up is think about it this way: is outside of the person themselves, right? The ID, the credential on a campus, it powers their life across campus when they're there, whether they're there 1 year, 4 years, 5 years, right? They are using that credential probably every day to access doors, to eat, right? To take part in university experiences. Are you meeting these students where they are, right? Are they going to know what to do with a piece of plastic? Are they going to want to use a piece of plastic? They're using the phone for everything. And that credential is so important to their life on campus. that if you can make it as frictionless as possible, as convenient as possible, the best user experience that they can have, where again, it just works, it's invisible to them, you're going to have a lot more, happy students.
Definitely, yeah. And then it looks like we're coming up on the end of everything that we'd had prepared. And I think the one last thing I wanted to ask before we wrapped up for the day is why should leadership care?
Yeah, good question, Matt. It comes back to something I mentioned earlier, right? The hard truth. We shouldn't be forcing the next generation to live in our world. We really need to build their worlds. And what I mean by that is universities, leadership, right? We've seen some huge progress in many areas around student experience over the last decade, right? State of the art new buildings and dorms are going up everywhere. The number of green spaces around campus, the social and mental health awareness projects, Wi-Fi and network connectivity really everywhere. Every type of meal plan and dietary need is being accounted for on campus, right? There's huge strides made everywhere across campus. But when it comes to really the identity and the access infrastructure, we are still stuck in the past. We are still using credential technology that is now 20 or years old that is compromised. We are still using plastic IDs that may or may not work everywhere on campus. We are still giving out multiple cards or multiple keys or fobs to these students to interact with various systems on campus. And it's a huge problem. And it goes back to the comment I made before is outside of that person themselves, the credential that they are carrying is the constant that powers their life on a campus. And when it works, it is fantastic. It is invisible. And when it's clunky, it's a splinter in their foot, right? It's just their pain of their existence. And we're in 2025, and I mentioned Generation Alpha is coming. Like there is a better way to approach this. There's a better way to tackle identity and access on campus. And I empower, campus leadership to start having those hard conversations and ultimately figuring out a way that there is a better way to do this.
Yeah. And then I think and then unfortunately, I think that's about all the time that we have for today. One more time, I'd like to thank our guest, Tim Nyblom, the Director of End User Business Development, Higher Education for HID Global. Tim, thanks so much for spending some time with us today and for sharing your time and expertise. This was really informative, and I think our listeners got a lot out of it. And so thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Matt. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, and hope the audience learned something, and look forward to the next conversation. Thanks again.
Yeah, no, thank you. And then for our listeners, thank you to you also for spending some time with us today. I'm your host, Matt Jones, and this has been Schools in Focus.